At 6:47 in the morning, on November the 3rd, 1944, the world was a uniform, frozen gray. Private First Class Michael Donovan, a 22-year-old sniper assigned to the U.S. 5th Infantry Division, felt the damp cold of Metz, France, seep through his uniform. He was crouched in the skeletal ruin of a bakery, a building that smelled of wet ash, stale bread, and death. He peered through a jagged crack in the masonry, his breath pluming in front of his face. Slowly, as if emerging from a spectral realm, the silhouettes of German defensive positions began to congeal out of the morning fog. Donovan was a paradox of lethal competence and crippling vulnerability. He was, by all accounts, an expert. He had been in sustained combat for 6 months, a lifetime in the infantry. He had 14 confirmed kills, 14 men he had watched fall through his scope. Yet in all that time, in all those engagements, not once had he seen the enemy sniper before that enemy sniper had sent a round screaming past his head. He was a hunter who was, invariably, the first one hunted. The city of Metz was not a city. It was a fortress. It was a critical anchor of the German West Wall, a bastion that Hitler had ordered to be held at all costs. The Germans had fortified it with a nightmarish ingenuity, turning the ancient city into a web of over 200 interlocking defensive positions. Concrete pillboxes, reinforced bunkers, and sandbagged machine gun nests covered every street, every bridge, every conceivable angle of approach. And in the highest, most concealed corners of this fortress, the Sharpschützen waited, the German snipers. Donovan was part of the 5th Infantry Division's grinding, bloody attempt to take this city. His official job was counter-sniper work. The mission was simple in theory. Find the German snipers before they found the American infantrymen. Eliminate them. Protect the advance. But this simple theory was a brutal, failing practice. The problem, Donovan knew, was not his equipment. He carried an M1903 Springfield, a bolt-action rifle revered for its reliability and precision. Fitted with its telescopic sight, it was accurate to 800 yards, more than enough for the grim geometry of urban warfare. The problem was not his training. Donovan had graduated at the top of his sniper class at Fort Benning, a man who understood ballistics, windage, and the art of concealment better than any of his peers. The problem was that German snipers saw him first. They saw him first, every single time, without exception. The Germans were using a tactic that was simple, patient, and murderously effective. They called it the Doppelstellung, the double position. A German sniper team would meticulously prepare 2 separate concealed firing positions, typically 30 to 50 yards apart, each covering the same sector. They would fire a single shot from the first position, a shot designed to draw attention, to make the Americans react. Then, while the American sniper was frantically scanning, trying to locate the source of the shot, the German team would simply displace, moving unseen to their second pre-prepared position. The math of this tactic was simple and deadly. Donovan, like any trained sniper, needed time. Upon spotting a muzzle flash or a flicker of movement, he needed 12 to 15 seconds. 12 to 15 seconds to acquire the target through his scope, to confirm it was the enemy, to calculate the distance, to adjust his scope for elevation, to read the wind, and to finally, carefully, squeeze the trigger. But by the time Donovan had his rifle aimed at the first position, the German was long gone. He was already settled in the second position, calmly raising his own rifle. While Donovan was still searching, the German was aiming. While Donovan was calculating, the German was pulling the trigger. The Germans were exploiting the Americans' reaction time as a weapon. They shot first, always. The cost of this tactical failure was measured in men. By early November, the 5th Infantry Division had lost 23 American snipers in the meat grinder of Metz. These weren't green replacements. These were 23 men who were supposed to be the best marksmen in their battalions, the specialists sent to solve the problem. 23 funerals, 23 letters home. All of them killed the same way, shot while searching for targets they never saw. For Donovan, this was not a statistic. It was a gallery of ghosts. The first ghost was Corporal James Bradley. They'd been partnered since Donovan arrived. Bradley was a farm kid from Nebraska, the kind of natural shot who could hit a running rabbit at 200 yards without thinking. They had worked together for 3 weeks. Bradley had 9 confirmed kills. On the morning of October 18, 1944, Bradley was doing his job. He was scanning a distant factory building through his scope, hunting. A single 7.92 millimeter Mauser round, fired from a window 400 yards away, tore through the air and struck him in the head. He died instantly, his eye still pressed to the scope. Donovan never even saw where the German was hiding. The enemy sniper had spotted them, aimed and fired before either American knew they were being hunted. The second ghost was Private First Class Robert Chen. He was Donovan's second partner. Chen was from San Francisco. He had sharp eyes, impossibly steady hands, and 12 confirmed kills to his name. They had been working together for only 8 days when, on October 29th, the pattern repeated. Chen was watching a German trench line through his scope. The shot came from rubble 350 yards away, from an angle they hadn't been watching. The round hit Chen in the chest, puncturing his lung. He didn't die instantly. He lived for 40 minutes, drowning in his own blood while Donovan and the medics tried desperately to save him. Donovan found the Germans' firing position later, long after Chen had died. The sniper was gone. A single spent shell casing was all that remained. The pattern was immutable. An American sniper team sets up a position. The American sniper searches for targets. A German sniper, already watching from a different angle, fires first. The American sniper dies. Command kept issuing the same useless orders. Stay mobile. Change positions frequently. Use concealment. But these orders failed to grasp the fundamental, lethal flaw in their own doctrine. By the time an American sniper, tucked deep in concealment, found a target, German snipers had already been watching that concealment for minutes. They had already calculated the shot. They were already pulling the trigger. Donovan became obsessed. He stopped thinking about killing and started thinking about seeing. He studied how the engagements developed. He would watch German positions through his scope, searching for that telltale movement, that shadow that was too dark, that muzzle flash that gave everything away. But he realized that while he was searching forward through his scope, he was completely, utterly blind. He couldn't see what was happening behind him. He couldn't see if German snipers were, at that very moment, watching him from different angles. He couldn't see the threats he wasn't looking at. The scope, he realized, was the problem. The very tool that gave him his lethal reach was also his fatal flaw. The rifle scopes used by many snipers in the 5th Infantry Division were powerful 8x magnification optics. This high magnification was a miracle, allowing them to identify targets at extreme ranges. But it came at a terrible cost, an absurdly narrow field of view. When Donovan looked through his 8x scope, his world shrank to a cone of only 8 degrees. At 400 yards, he could see a patch of the world perhaps 50 feet wide. Everything outside that narrow cone was invisible. It was, as he'd heard other snipers describe, like trying to fight a war by looking through a toilet paper tube. The German snipers exploited this tunnel vision ruthlessly. They didn't shoot from the positions the Americans were watching. They shot from flanking positions, from angles the Americans weren't scanning. By the time an American sniper finished scanning one sector and turned to search a new one, a German sniper was already in that new sector, already aimed, his crosshairs already settled. After Chen died, Donovan spent 3 nights in that ruined hotel, sleepless, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the same questions. How do you see threats you're not looking at? How do you watch behind you while scanning forward? How do you survive when the enemy always spots you first? The solution did not come from an ordnance manual or a training film. It came from his shaving kit. It was a simple, standard-issue 4x6-inch mirror set in a cheap metal frame. He held it in his hand, looking at his own grimy, exhausted face, and then he looked at his rifle, propped against the wall. He realized he could mount the mirror. He could attach it to his rifle, to his scope, to give himself peripheral vision while he was looking through the scope. He could angle it to see behind him, to watch his own flank, with just a quick glance, without moving his head, without giving away his position. The idea was insane. It was completely, flagrantly unauthorized. Modifying precision sniper equipment without approval was a direct violation of every regulation in the sniper manual. Altering military property in such a crude way could get him court-martialed. The minimum punishment, he knew, would be reassignment to a front-line infantry squad, a virtual death sentence in the meat grinder of Metz. The maximum was a dishonorable discharge. But Bradley was dead. Chen was dead. 23 American snipers were dead, all killed by a problem the Army refused to solve. Donovan didn't want to be number 24. He would risk a court-martial. He would risk disgrace. He would not risk dying blind. Donovan worked alone on the night of November 2nd. The building his unit occupied had been a small, elegant hotel before the war. Now it was a hollowed-out carcass of rubble. Shattered walls, collapsed ceilings, and a carpet of broken glass that crunched under his boots with every movement. The air was thick with the smell of smoke, cordite, and damp plaster. He found a quiet corner on the 3rd floor where nobody would interrupt him. He pulled his M1903 Springfield from its case and set it on a makeshift table made from broken furniture. The November night was bitingly cold. He could see his breath in the dim, yellow beam of his flashlight. From his pack, he pulled the mirror from his shaving kit. 4 inches by 6 inches, metal frame, slightly scratched, but still reflective. Also in his pack, a roll of black electrical tape salvaged from a signal corps wire, his combat knife, and a pair of wire cutters. Not exactly precision tools, but they would have to work. His rifle was the M1903 Springfield, and mounted on top was an ATX telescopic sight. The scope sat about 3 inches above the barrel, held in place by steel rings. The challenge was to mount the mirror where he could see it while looking through the scope, but without it interfering with the rifle's operation, his sight picture, or the rifle's delicate zero. He tested different positions. He held the mirror in various spots, simulating his cheek weld, his eye relief. Too high, and he couldn't see it without lifting his eye from the scope, a movement that would give him away. Too low, and it blocked his view or his access to the rifle's bolt. Too far forward, and the angle was wrong, reflecting nothing but the ground. After 20 minutes of testing, of quiet trial and error in the freezing dark, he found the perfect position. It had to be mounted on the left side of the scope tube. It had to be angled at precisely 45 degrees, and it had to be positioned about 8 inches forward of his eye. From that exact spot, when he looked through the scope at a target, he could see the mirror in his left eye's peripheral vision. It didn't block his main sight. It didn't interfere with his aim, but it was there. A simple glance to the left, a fraction of a second, and he could see everything in his rear arc. He could see the doorway behind him. He could see the street. He could see the flank. His hands were shaking as he started the installation. Not from the cold. They were shaking from the knowledge of what he was doing. This was a flagrant breach of regulations, unauthorized modifications to precision equipment, altering military property without approval. He knew the articles of war. He knew the punishment. But then Chen's face appeared in his mind. Chen gasping for air, blood bubbling from the hole in his chest, dying slowly, horribly, while Donovan pressed uselessly on the wound and screamed for a medic. Chen had been watching forward. He had been doing his job. The German shot him from the side, from an angle Chen could never have seen. If Chen had been able to see that flanking angle, he might still be alive. The shaking in Donovan's hands stopped. He went to work. He cut the electrical tape into strips. He wrapped them around the mirror's metal frame to create a cushion to stop it from scratching the scope. Then he wrapped more tape around the scope tube itself, creating a padded base that would provide grip. The mirror had to stay in place. It had to survive the violent recoil of the Springfield's .30-06 round. It had to maintain its 45-degree angle. It could not shift. It could not rattle. The installation took 40 agonizing minutes. His cold, numbed fingers kept slipping on the tape. The mirror kept sliding. Twice it fell off completely, clattering against the broken furniture. Each time it hit the floor, his heart hammered against his ribs. If anyone heard him, if an officer came to investigate, he'd face immediate charges. Finally, the mirror held. It was a crude, ugly amalgam of tape and glass. He tested it. He shouldered the rifle, settled his cheek against the stock, and looked through the scope, aiming at a dark shape down the ruined hallway. He glanced left. The mirror showed him the view behind him, the doorway, the hallway, everything in his rear arc. It worked. Donovan ran the tape around the mirror frame 3 more times, securing it tight, making it one with the rifle. He tested the rifle's balance. The mirror added maybe 4 ounces, negligible weight. He checked the scope alignment. Still perfect. The mirror didn't interfere with the rifle's zero. The modification looked crude. It was obviously not factory equipment. Any officer who inspected the rifle would see it immediately and know it was a field modification. But Donovan didn't plan on letting any officers inspect his rifle. He'd keep it in its case. He would take it out only for missions. He would hope nobody noticed. He cleaned up the tape scraps, put away his tools. It was 04:15 hours. In 5 hours, he'd be moving to a new position in the destroyed industrial district. It was a sector that German snipers controlled completely. 3 American snipers had died there in the past week alone. Tomorrow, Donovan would test whether a simple, unauthorized piece of shaving mirror could change his odds of survival. At 6:47 hours on November the 3rd, Donovan moved into position in the destroyed bakery. The building had taken a direct hit from artillery. Most of the south wall was gone, exposing the interior to the street. The Germans held a factory complex 400 yards away. It was perfect sniper terrain. Rubble, broken windows, shadows, 1,000 places to hide. Donovan's new partner was Private Sam Martinez. Martinez was 19, from Texas. He'd been a sniper for 3 weeks, had 0 kills, but good instincts. That morning, Martinez had noticed the bizarre taped-on mirror on Donovan's rifle. He'd asked, "What is that for?" Donovan, settling his gear, gave a one-word answer: survival. Martinez was smart enough not to ask any more questions. They set up in a corner room on the second floor. The bakery's old massive brick oven provided solid cover. A crack in the wall, no wider than his hand, gave them a narrow view of the German-held factory. Donovan used broken furniture to create a stable shooting rest. Martinez, armed with his M1 Garand, covered the room's entrance, watching for German infantry. The morning fog was lifting. The factory complex emerged from the gray, a jagged silhouette of broken windows, collapsed sections, and piles of rubble. Somewhere in that wreckage, German snipers were waiting. They were already scanning. They were hunting. Donovan settled behind his rifle, pressing his eye to the scope. The 8x magnification brought the factory into sharp, clear focus. He began his scan. Left to right, slow, methodical. He was looking for that 50-foot-wide slice of the world, searching for movement, for a shadow that didn't belong, for anything that indicated a sniper position. This was the toilet paper tube. This was the narrow cone that had killed Bradley and Chen. They had been looking just like this, focused on one sector, completely blind to everything else. But now Donovan had the mirror. While his right eye scanned through the scope, his left eye was aware of the reflection. The mirror showed him the street behind him. It showed him the ruined buildings across the way. It showed him his flank approaches. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't high definition, but it was something. It was better than being blind. At 7:23 hours, he spotted it. Movement. In the factory, 3rd floor, damaged window. Something dark moved behind the frame. It could be debris shifting. It could be a rat. He held his aim steady. The movement came again. It was definitely human. A German soldier, moving careful and slow. Probably a sniper setting up a new position. Donovan began his lethal calculation. He estimated the distance, 410 yards. The wind was calm. It was an easy shot. He took a slow breath, letting half of it out, his finger moving to the trigger. He was about to take the shot when he saw something in the mirror. It was just a flicker of movement, a disturbance in the reflection. It was coming from behind him, across the street, in a building he'd thought was empty. He kept his eye on the scope. He did not move his head. He did not flinch. He just shifted his attention to the mirror, to the reflection of the building on his flank. There, 3rd floor window. Something moved. A German sniper. Donovan could see the long barrel of the rifle in the mirror's reflection. He could see the glint of the enemy's scope. The German was aiming directly at Donovan's position. He had probably been watching them for several minutes. He was probably at that very second calculating his own shot. He was probably about to fire. This was it. This was the exact scenario. This was the Doppelstellung. The sniper in the factory was the bait. This sniper, the one in the mirror, was the killer. This was exactly how Bradley and Chen had died. Focused on a target ahead, killed by a sniper from a flanking angle they never saw. But Donovan saw it. The mirror showed him the threat. He didn't move. He didn't turn his head. He gave no indication he had spotted the German. He just kept his rifle aimed at the factory, at the first target, and whispered to his partner, "Martinez, German sniper, building behind us, third floor, left window. He's aiming at us right now." Martinez moved with agonizing slowness. He pulled his M1 Garand into position, aimed toward the building behind them. He found the window. He saw the German sniper. Martinez whispered, his voice tight, "I see him." Donovan whispered back, "On my count. I'll take the one in the factory. You take the one behind us. 3, 2, 1, fire." 2 rifles cracked. The sharp report of Donovan's Springfield and the heavier boom of Martinez's Garand, the sounds echoing as one. 410 yards away, the German in the factory jerked backward, hit center mass. He fell out of view. Simultaneously, the Garand's .30-06 round punched through the window frame behind them. The German sniper slumped forward, dead. 2 shots, 2 kills, 5 seconds total. Before, it would have taken Donovan 15 seconds just to engage the first target, and in that time, the second sniper would have killed him. Now, both threats were neutralized in a third of the time. Donovan worked the Springfield's bolt, ejected the spent casing, and loaded another round. He scanned through the scope again. The mirror showed no more threats behind him. They were clear. Martinez was breathing hard, the adrenaline pumping. He whispered, "That German, he was about to shoot you. He had you dead. How did you see him?" Donovan tapped the crude, taped-on mirror. He explained how it worked. Martinez stared at it for a long moment, the realization dawning on his face. Then he said something that would prove prophetic. "You need to put that on every sniper rifle in the battalion." The engagement that morning lasted 4 hours. Donovan's 2-man team eliminated 6 German snipers. Donovan got 4. Martinez got 2. Every single kill followed the new pattern. Donovan would spot a target through his scope, but before taking the shot, he would check the mirror. 3 more times, the mirror revealed German snipers trying to flank them from positions Donovan wasn't watching. Each time, Martinez engaged the flanking threat while Donovan took the forward target. The coordination was flawless. The mirror gave them 360-degree awareness. The German Doppelstellung tactic was rendered useless. German snipers couldn't ambush them because Donovan could see them coming. By that afternoon, word had spread through the sniper teams. Donovan's team had eliminated 6 Germans without taking a single casualty. Other teams, weary of losing their partners, wanted to know how. Martinez told them about the mirror. By evening, 3 more snipers had come to Donovan asking him to install the modification on their rifles. The first was Sergeant Frank Wilson. Wilson was 28, from Montana, a hunter before the war. He was a man haunted. He had lost 2 partners in 3 weeks, both killed by flanking shots they never saw coming. Wilson watched Donovan work that night, asking questions about the angle, the positioning, the attachment method. When Donovan finished, Wilson tested it. He looked through the scope, glanced at the mirror, and a look of grim relief washed over his face. He said it was perfect. He said he should have thought of it himself. He asked if Donovan wanted payment. Donovan shook his head. "No, just don't get killed. That's payment enough." The next morning, Wilson's team engaged German snipers near the cathedral. Wilson spotted 2 Germans using the mirror. He eliminated them both before they could fire. He came back raving about how the modification had saved his life, and he told every sniper he knew. By November 8th, Donovan had installed mirrors on 9 rifles. The modification spread sniper to sniper, team to team. Some snipers, not wanting to wait, made their own. They used whatever reflective material they could find: broken glass, polished metal, even pieces of chrome salvaged from destroyed vehicles. The mirrors didn't need to be perfect, they just needed to reflect. The battalion's kill ratio shifted dramatically. In October, American snipers in Metz lost 2 men for every 1 German sniper eliminated. It was an unsustainable losing fight. By mid-November, after the mirror modification had spread, the ratio was 4-to-1 in the American favor. 4 German snipers were killed for every American lost. The insane idea had not just saved Donovan, it had reversed the tactical reality of the battle. The man who commanded the battalion's sniper platoon was Captain Robert Hayes. Hayes was career Army, 12 years in service. He was a man who knew every sniper manual by heart, a man who lived and breathed regulations. On November 10th, he conducted a standard inspection of the sniper teams, checking equipment, verifying the zero on their rifles, ensuring they were combat ready. He climbed up to Donovan's position in a ruined textile mill. He saw the mirror, held on by its crude wrapping of black electrical tape. He stopped. He stared at it for a long time. Then he asked, his voice flat, "What is that?" Donovan's stomach dropped. This was it. This was the court-martial. He had been caught. Everything he had feared since installing the first mirror was about to happen. But before Donovan could answer, Sam Martinez spoke up. Martinez, standing at attention, said, "Sir, it's a mirror modification. It helps us see flanking threats. It has saved our lives multiple times in the past week. It is completely unauthorized, sir, but it is proven effective in combat." Hayes's eyes drilled into Martinez, then back to Donovan. "Who authorized it?" Martinez didn't hesitate. "Nobody, sir. We did it ourselves. We knew it was against regulations, but it worked." Hayes examined the mirror closely. He ran a finger over the tape. He crouched behind the rifle, tested the angle, looked through the scope, and then glanced at the mirror. He understood, immediately, what it did and why it worked. He stood up and looked at Donovan. "How many rifles have this modification?" Donovan, bracing for the charges, answered truthfully, "9, sir, including mine." Hayes looked at him, then at Martinez. Then he said something Donovan never expected. "By tomorrow morning, I want every sniper rifle in this battalion to have one. That's an order. I'll handle the paperwork. You focus on keeping my men alive." Donovan stood there, stunned. In one sentence, Hayes had just made the modification official. He had protected Donovan from all charges. More than that, Hayes understood. He was a man who knew the regulations, but he was also a leader who knew when those regulations were getting his men killed. He was willing to break the rules to save more. That night, Donovan worked faster than ever. He recruited other snipers, showed them how to install the mirrors, taught them the positioning, the angle, the attachment method. They scrounged for materials. Some mirrors were mounted with tape. Others used salvaged wire. One sniper used the leather straps from a gas mask. The methods varied, but the principle stayed the same. Give the snipers peripheral vision. Give them eyes in the back of their heads. By November 12th, every sniper in the battalion had a mirror. The modification was no longer a secret. It was standard equipment. The German snipers noticed the change almost immediately. The effect was so profound that it began to appear in their intelligence reports. German intel reports from November mentioned unusual American sniper behaviors. They noted that Americans were engaging German flanking positions they shouldn't have been able to see. They were counterattacking before German snipers could fire. They were, somehow, aware of threats outside their scope's field of view. The confusion was palpable. Intercepted German radio chatter, translated by Signal Corps linguists, captured the panic. One panicked operator transmitted a message that spread through the German lines. "Attention! American snipers see through walls!" The German sniper commanders tried to adapt. They started using longer range positions, attacking from 600 to 800 yards instead of 400. But the American snipers with mirrors could still detect movement at those ranges. The mirrors showed flanking threats regardless of distance. Some Germans tried attacking from multiple positions simultaneously, hoping to overwhelm American awareness. But the mirror-equipped snipers, now working in coordinated pairs, one sniper watching forward, the other watching the mirror, could cover all angles. Nothing got past them. By late November, the tactical advantage had shifted completely. German snipers in Metz, once the apex predators of the city, were now actively avoiding engagements with American sniper teams. The Americans could see threats coming. They could counterattack before the Germans fired. They could survive engagements they should have lost. The modification, born of desperation and electrical tape, was never officially sanctioned by the wider U.S. Army during the war. It remained a battalion-level, field-expedient solution. In December 1944, a training inspector noticed the mirrors and wrote a report. The report circulated through the labyrinth of Army command for weeks, while officers debated how to handle it. On one hand, the modification violated regulations. It was an unauthorized change to precision equipment. On the other hand, it was working. Sniper teams using the mirrors had significantly better survival rates and higher kill ratios. In January 1945, an evaluation team from the Aberdeen Proving Ground came to Metz. The team consisted of 3 officers and 2 civilian ballistics experts. They inspected the mirrors. They tested them. They interviewed the snipers, measured the field of view improvement, and calculated the tactical advantage. Their conclusion was blunt. The mirrors provided a significant survivability enhancement and should be integrated into sniper doctrine. But here, the story took a bureaucratic turn. The evaluation team, in their formal recommendation to Army Ordnance, wanted to redesign the system. They proposed using manufactured mirrors instead of salvaged materials. They suggested creating standardized mounting brackets. They wanted to turn the field improvisation into proper military equipment. In the process, they erased the inventor. The team wrote their formal recommendation, submitted it, and made it sound like they had discovered the innovation. The official record would show that Army evaluators had identified a sniper visibility problem and developed a mirror solution. Private First Class Michael Donovan's name never appeared in the documentation. Neither did Private Sam Martinez's. Neither did Captain Robert Hayes's. Captain Hayes was furious. He tried to correct the record. He wrote letters. He submitted after-action reports, making sure Donovan's name was in every document from the battalion. But those reports, the ones from the field, were conveniently lost in military bureaucracy. The evaluation team's version, the official version, became history. Donovan learned about this in February 1945. An officer showed him the documentation, asked if he wanted to file a complaint. Donovan said no. He didn't care about the credit. He cared that snipers were surviving. He cared that partners weren't dying from shots they never saw coming. The war in Europe ended on May 8, 1945. Michael Donovan had survived 11 months of brutal combat. He had 47 confirmed kills. The mirror, his crude, unauthorized invention, had saved his life at least 6 times. 6 times he had spotted German snipers trying to flank him. 6 times he had eliminated them first. Sam Martinez survived too. He finished the war with 14 confirmed kills. After the war, he went back to Texas and became a police officer in Houston. For 30 years, he kept a photograph of Donovan's rifle with the mirror taped to it on his desk. And every year, on November 3rd, Martinez called Donovan, thanked him for installing the mirror, and told him he wouldn't have survived Metz without it. Sergeant Frank Wilson also survived. 31 confirmed kills. The mirror saved his life 4 times. He returned to Montana after the war and became a hunting guide. Sometimes he'd tell clients about the mirror modification, about how a desperate sniper had figured out how to see threats he wasn't looking at, about how that simple trick had saved lives. Michael Donovan stayed in the Army until 1946. Then he went home to Pennsylvania, worked in a factory for 35 years, the same work he'd done before the war. He married in 1947, had 3 children, and lived quietly. He never talked much about the war. When people asked, he'd say he was a sniper, and that's all. He didn't mention the mirror modification. He didn't mention saving dozens of snipers. He didn't mention changing how American snipers fought. It wasn't modesty. He just didn't think it mattered anymore. By the 1960s, the mirror modification had been mostly forgotten. New sniper scopes had better optics. Some even had integrated peripheral indicators. But nobody remembered that the concept started with a piece of a shaving mirror taped to a Springfield in Metz. The official Army history of sniper operations never mentioned Donovan. The training manuals credited improved optics and better tactics. Donovan's contribution had been erased, not intentionally, not out of malice, but through the slow, grinding indifference of bureaucratic process. Field modifications weren't historically significant. Official developments were. Then, in 1987, a military historian researching sniper innovations stumbled upon a reference to improvised mirrors in the November 1944 maintenance logs from the 5th Infantry Division, stored deep in the National Archives. The logs mentioned an unauthorized optical modification on rifle serial number 142567, and they mentioned a name, Private First Class Donovan. The historian spent months tracking down veterans from that unit. He found Sam Martinez. Martinez, retired, told him the whole story, about Bradley dying, about Chen dying, about Donovan, terrified of court-martial, installing the mirror in the dark, about how it spread through the battalion, about how it saved their lives. The historian found Donovan through veteran registries. Donovan was 67 years old, still living in Pennsylvania. The historian called him, asked if he'd installed the mirrors. Donovan said yes. He then asked why the historian cared about something that had happened 40 years ago. The historian explained. Based on survival rate improvements in units that used the mirrors versus units that didn't, he calculated that Donovan's modification had probably saved between 40 and 60 American sniper lives between November 1944 and May 1945. Donovan was quiet for a moment. Then he said he'd never counted. He just remembered Martinez and Wilson and the others who came back. That was enough. The historian published his findings in the spring 1989 issue of Military History Quarterly. It was a small article describing the mirror modification, crediting Donovan, and including interviews with Martinez and Wilson. The article reached maybe 1,500 readers, mostly academics, veterans, and history enthusiasts. Donovan received 4 letters after the article was published, all from snipers or their families. One was from a sniper who had used the mirror in Germany. He said it saved his life twice. Another was from a widow whose husband had been a sniper in Metz and had been killed in October, before the mirror. She'd never known about the modification. Learning about it 40 years later gave her comfort, knowing that someone had tried to keep her husband and men like him alive. In 1992, Captain Robert Hayes visited Donovan. They hadn't seen each other in 45 years. They talked for hours about Metz, about the snipers they'd lost, and about the ones they'd saved. Hayes confessed that he had tried for years to get Donovan recognized. He'd written letters, filed reports. Nobody cared. Too much time had passed. Hayes showed Donovan a folded document he'd kept. It was a recommendation he had written in 1945, nominating Donovan for the Silver Star. It had been denied. Hayes looked at the man whose life he had saved from a court-martial, and who, in turn, had saved the lives of his men. "You saved more men than any general I ever served under," Hayes told him. Donovan said he didn't need recognition. He had Martinez alive. He had Wilson alive. He had 40 others alive. That, he said, was recognition enough. Michael Donovan died on June 7, 2001. He was 79 years old. His obituary mentioned his service in World War II. It did not mention the mirror modification. It did not mention that he had saved dozens of lives. It did not mention that he had changed how American snipers fought in Europe. His funeral was small. Family, a few friends. 4 men Donovan's family didn't know attended. They stood respectfully in the back. After the service, they introduced themselves. They were snipers, men whose lives had been saved by the mirror modification. They had read about Donovan's death in veterans' newsletters and had driven across 3 states to pay their respects. They wanted his family to know what he had done. Donovan's children learned the full story that day, standing in a cemetery. They learned their quiet, factory worker father had installed mirrors on sniper rifles. They learned those mirrors had saved lives. They learned he had done it without authorization, risking everything. And they learned he'd never talked about it because he didn't think it mattered. Today, Donovan's story exists in fragments, in maintenance logs in the National Archives, in interview transcripts, in a single paragraph in a book about sniper modifications. Most people who study World War II snipers have never heard of him. But if you visit the National Infantry Museum at Fort Moore, formerly Fort Benning, you can see an M1903 Springfield rifle from World War II. Mounted on the scope, held in place by crude, fraying black tape, is a small rectangular mirror, 4 inches by 6, metal frame. The placard next to it is brief. It's labeled as a field modification, common in late 1944. No name is attached. That is Donovan's legacy. Not the official one, but the real one. The one that mattered to Martinez, and to Wilson, and to the 40 or 60 others who survived because a desperate sniper broke regulations to save his partners. That is how innovation actually happens in war. Not through committees or evaluation teams or training manuals. It happens through soldiers who see problems and fix them. Soldiers who don't wait for authorization, who risk everything, because their friends are dying and they can't stand watching anymore. Michael Donovan installed a mirror to save his partners. That mirror saved dozens, and nobody remembers his name, but you now.